Smooch and the Dog Show. Another new episode is coming up tonight.
It's the Dog Show. It's the Dog Show. It's the Dog Show. It's the Dog Show.
You're listening to the one and only Dog Show. Your hosts, Troop Brinson and Smooch Moncrief.
I love being us, man.
Just two dudes talking Georgia football.
Yes. Welcome, dog fans, to the one and only Dog Show with Troop and Smooch. Smooch, man, did the folks know that sexy voice, the intro in that first part of the intro is all this is just me and you, mostly you, except for the Marlboro Man right there at the very end. That's all Dog Show stuff, right?
All done in house, man. I we get asked a lot who handles all of our voiceovers in production. We paid the Coors beer guy to do the two dudes, and he says this is the Dog Show with Troop and Smooch. But the rest of it, that's all in house. The cheerleaders that you hear at the beginning chanting "It's the Dog Show," that's done right here in Dog Show headquarters.
Yeah, that's definitely cheerleaders coming and going through the Moncrief residence. They slow down. Smooch is like, I need to record you guys. Just a moment. Just hang on right there.
Yes, can y'all form a tunnel for me to run through and scream "It's the Dog Show"? That'd be great.
Oh, folks, we're so glad to be here. The Dog Show. We look forward every week to coming on and having a wonderful episode. It's been so good. You guys have been so good to us.
Oh, that's so true.
And we were just talking off air, but if we recorded just the stuff we talk about in the pre-show, man, that's a show when it's on.
Yeah.
So we were talking off air about what's going on in Georgia football, and man, it's a good time of year. The weather has warmed up at least for a little bit this week. 80 degrees here in middle Georgia, and Smooch in North Alabama. I think he's probably got good weather too.
It's beautiful.
Beautiful weather. Get out and walk the dogs. Me and my son went out to the golf course yesterday and loosened up the old back a little bit, taking about on the driving range for about 30, 40 swings.
Nice.
But as we talk about that, we also have an eye towards Athens, where spring practice is getting underway. We got our first spring practice report today, and we've been seeing some of these athletes run drills and just look spectacular, man. It gets you excited. I'm sure every team is like that. You get excited about seeing these new players and the development that comes along, and because you've been following them for so long. So
yes,
yeah, hope springs eternal. But as a dog fan, with all we have in our cupboard, I'm so excited.
Yeah,
our goal here is to make history every day.
That's Jalen Walker, right? That's one of our not our newest players, but one of our newest leaders, a man that's ready to step into his position and lead. And that's the exciting thing about a Kirby-led team is you've got your new recruits, your freshmen or whatever, or even your transfers, but then you have new leaders who have waited their time and taken a submissive or subsidiary role until it's their time to step into the forefront as leaders. Jalen Walker, Carson Beck, watching those guys assert themselves as the unquestioned leaders of this team this year is going to be really exciting.
Yep, we're going to talk a little bit about that, and Pro Day. Georgia just had that as well. We can talk about what we saw for Georgia's Pro Day. It was televised on ESPN. And then we're going to talk about a couple of rivals that previously in the SEC East, Tennessee and Florida. We're going to look at their schedules and have our own kind of take on what we expect from those guys. The main reason is because, man, we've been talking so much about Alabama. We just need a break from Alabama. Yeah. And I'm sorry, Bama fans. I know you come to the Dog Show to stroke whatever you need.
Alabama!
Scratch that itch. And you've been showing us that on social media that you enjoy what we bring to the table. And it's just a good back and forth, Smooch. I've seen you trying to educate a few people on Twitter this past week.
Yeah, it's like I'm pulling a rickshaw, but it's we've been trying. You know, it's funny when when you corner an Alabama fan, like when their football knowledge runs out and it's nothing but Alabama emotion, they always do one of two things. They say, well, your Georgia education is showing, which usually means you've bested me in the argument. Or they say, this is a favorite of Bama and Tennessee. They call you a casual fan.
Yes.
I'm like, I think we have 50,000 on our TikTok, 50,000 likes on our TikTok right now. That's not casual, just FYI. Not a casual.
Right.
Of all the things you could say, you could say idiots, you're wrong, or whatever. But no, we've been right about Alabama since you picked Troop Brinson, Michigan to beat Alabama. They called us casual and they said we were stupid, and you were right. And then they said, well, it was still the wrong pick.
Yeah, I saw that on Twitter. I'm going to play this for you.
Yeah.
Turn it up. And you guys have heard this. And the guy that called us casual today, I just responded with this right here. Hold on.
I'm telling you this because we care.
We do.
And we do care. That is so tongue-in-cheek, but it's true. We don't – listen, if you're a Tennessee fan or a Florida fan or an Ohio State fan, we do actually care for you, and because you are unknowingly so ignorant and just so you're not experiencing the joy and the freedom you can of actually being a football fan because you're so entrenched in this bad religion that is whatever the school it is you're addicted to. And we at the Dog Show, we do care for you, and we're here for you, Troop Brinson.
We do, and we are. Yes. Very well said. Love that clip. But yeah, so Smooch has been fighting the fight on Twitter this week, and I joined in a little bit as well. And so we were going to talk about Tennessee and Florida and give those Crimson Tide just a little bit of a respite, right?
Yeah, give them a break.
Give them a break. So we did see Pro Day a few days ago, and my takeaway, you didn't see a couple of big time Georgia players, first rounders, compete yet because of hamstring issues with Brock Bowers and Amarius Mims. They've really already solidified their draft status. Right. We want to see them because we like seeing that kind of those athletes do their thing. But they may still do something later. But we missed them there. I think the players that, and I don't know if you have anything pulled up in terms of time, the players that really helped themselves to me was Ladd McConkey again. People were just through the roof and how good he looks, and just crazy athleticism, and he's just checking all the boxes. If you had any question about Ladd McConkey, talk to Coach Martin. He spoke about him, and then just watch him play football, watch him run, watch him do those drills. He checks all the boxes. This could be a delusional fan alert right here. As I saw, I think it was on Twitter, one of our posts might have responded. Of course, we played that last week where they said he's not faster. He just runs a faster 40. And then the guy was arguing with you, Smooch. Was like, well, maybe he's faster in the 100 and Burton's faster in the 200.
Yeah. Do you know how long the field is?
I'm like, okay. He's just playing a word game, like a semantics game a little bit right there. I was like, no, you're not ever winning this conversation because we have to judge based on something. And right now, Ladd McConkey's faster. And it's borderline racism. And I'll tell you, because we kept seeing that, well, he may be faster straight line speed, but he doesn't have the agility and explosion. Right. That means you've never watched Ladd McConkey then, because agility and explosion is his whole game. He is much more agile despite his paint job than Jermaine Burton is. It's not even close. And listen, I said this today. My final comment on TikTok today, and I'll say it now because I want you to have it if you're a rival podcast. Ladd McConkey is faster, more explosive, more agile, smarter, better, and a greater leader, better hands. Anything you can possibly measure a wide receiver in, Ladd McConkey is better than Jermaine Burton at that thing. Yeah. There it is. Yeah. There it is, guys. And another comment on that same post we had, Smooch, responding to you, that I was going to respond, and I'm just going to let Smooch handle it. I don't know if you did, but he said, okay, McConkey might be faster, but I think Burton's quicker. Yeah. What? That's what McConkey, that's what he's hanging his hat on right now. I mean, he's fast, but that cat gets in and out of breaks like nobody else in the draft. I mean, that's his thing. Come on. He's faster and quicker. Sorry.
He's faster and quicker. And, when you look at Jermaine Burton catch the ball, he's pretty decent at running deep routes. He tracks the ball pretty well. He's a fine wide receiver. There's nothing wrong with Burton as a receiver.
Yeah.
But how do you think Ladd McConkey gets open every time it's 3rd and 8 and there's no one around him? Do you think they forget about him? No, they bracket coverage to him, and he still runs a route that has him wide open. And those guys kill it at the next level because you got to level a quarterback that they don't miss open receivers. And so, yeah, it's the idea of somehow, I remember this whole thing started months ago when some Bama fan put up a mock draft and had Burton going to the Falcons with the number 8 overall pick.
That sounded like Tennessee fans last year.
Oh my gosh, on Hooker and Hyatt in the
Going
first
in the
3
top
picks.
10.
In the first 3, they were going. Tennessee's going to trade back up into the top 5 and get both. I'm like, no. Yeah, that's very similar to that, but. No, I mean, when you take attitudes out of it, look, McConkey's just a better player. You factor attitudes into it, it's a no-brainer. I think McConkey goes in the top 40 picks and Burton goes in the top 100 picks. I think that's probably pretty fair.
That's very, very fair. And we would love for Ladd McConkey to be a first-round pick, and he may, in the last couple of picks, he may get in there. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of great players, and teams have different needs. But just like we were talking about, I think it was Coach telling us that it depends on how it runs. You know, if you get a wide receiver run at some point in the early 20s, then he could get off the board quick. You know, somebody's like, well, I got to get a receiver. That was our number one need. And our first 2 picks that we had circled are already gone. And Ladd McConkey looks great. Plus, he played at Georgia. Yeah. And so he's battle tested.
Yeah. The thing that doesn't look good, the thing that doesn't look good for McConkey in the first round right now is a lot of NFL teams that had wide receiver needs early in the draft. The Falcons are even one of them. They have traded for wide receivers. The Falcons traded for a receiver today. They traded Desmond Ridder away for a wide receiver today. And so a lot of these teams are filling that need. So it's telling me that the run is probably going to be on edge defenders. That's what it's looking like to me. And so, Dallas Turner and his gang are going to be the one where you'll see guys that maybe had a 3rd-round grade sneak into the first round, something like that.
So top 40, very fair assessment. We didn't say notice Alabama and Tennessee fans. We didn't say Ladd McConkey's going in the top 12, right? Because he's a Georgia Bulldog. Top 40, very, very fair. And, he's going to make some team very happy. We do know that. And as far as other players who were impressive, Kamari Lassiter looked really good and is kind of solidified what he's all about. Ran in the 4.5s and plenty fast. I've seen him as low as a 4.51, right in there, 4.50, 4.51.
I didn't see that. That's good.
Yeah, he did. And a little bit because during pro day, these guys have their own stopwatches. The school's not running laser times, and it's not. So everybody makes their own timing, and so it's not always 100% accurate. It just depends on who's running it. So everybody does their own thing with that.
The thing that's interesting is I think Lassiter and the kid at Pitt and then the kid at Bama are the best cornerbacks in the draft. The kid at Alabama and Lassiter both ran 4.5s. Yeah. All of this celebration of, remember when Stokes ran the 4.2 during the COVID year, and ended up sneaking into the first round. But these guys are cover corners. I think at some point you have to say, listen, if they're athletic at all, they know the position. There's a lot of guys that run 4.2 40s that are awful in defense. They're turnstiles in defense. And the kid from Bama will go first. That's my guess. I wish I could remember his name, but I've got so many names in my head.
Kool-Aid?
No. It's Kool-Aid will too, but it's the other one.
Okay. Terrion Arnold?
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Terrion is going to go early, and he's
going to have some trouble if they call defensive holding on the next level.
Yeah, no kidding. He's not going to get those Alabama calls at the next level.
Man, he held against Georgia a lot.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah, and so but the big physical guys usually get drafted very early. So anyway, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Bullard looked absolute. He is moving up on people's draft boards, man. And they were talking him up. He looks great. He checks all the boxes too. And he came in as a 3-star, folks, just like Ladd McConkey did. And Kendall Milton ran well, and he's big and physical back at 220, 225 and running 4.6. Let me see who else. I don't think that. Unfortunately, I don't think that Rosemary Jack Saint had a great time So that's 4.6, 4.7 in there as well. That's
I heard
not great.
4.65, something like that is what I heard was the best hand time.
And of course, they're timing it, the hand time, and it's going to be a lot of variance and depending on who times it. So, but yeah.
So back to what you were saying about Ladd. So I was been trying to pull this up. So Ladd ran, a 6.72 three cone.
Mm-hmm.
Now that is elite route running. So I happen to know that several NFL GMs only draft wide receivers off of hands and three cone. The rest they could care less about. Hands and three cone, because it's about getting open, right?
Right.
And anything under six, anything under say, under seven's pretty good, but anything under say 6, 8, 7, something like that's really good. He ran a 6.72. That's up there with the best of the best, especially for a man that's 6 feet tall. That's another thing about Ladd. He looks little because he's so quick. He's 6 feet tall. That's not a little wide receiver.
Yeah, and that's what he does. If you the eyeball test tells you that Ladd is got super duper quick. So you Twitter fans don't believe it. People are always searching for whatever. They throw a lot of stuff out there, and that is a casual. When you just throw stuff out there, it's got no basis in fact and reality. Then you end up on our delusional fan alerts. But yeah, I mean, so we watched Pro Day. Cedric Van Pran looked good too. I mean, I saw him doing some drills, and Georgia was well represented. And again, you saw Kirby Smart standing there talking to Mike Tomlin, and people made a little bit of that, asking what they were talking about. And Tomlin's just, he loves. I think he's got a daughter who is now on one of the athletic teams. I don't remember what she plays. I can't remember what he said.
Volleyball? I can't remember.
I don't remember, but yeah. So anyway, so they were there, and Georgia finished that up, and we look more towards spring ball, and we've been seeing some stuff. I've heard some good things about some of the players, especially, and I'll mention this because we're going to talk about this over and over, because this is one of the things that gets us going, is that Georgia defense. And there are some players who are going to take that next step.
Yes.
This year, there was a lot of talent last year, a lot of youth, and we're going to see some guys, especially the way they're positioning the defense, moving Michael Williams outside to outside linebacker. And you're going to see like Warren Brinson and Kristen Miller, along with Stackhouse, do some really good things. But you're going to see some of those young guys on the edge and that linebacker who now, as a sophomore, who came in and played a lot of snaps as freshmen, like Damon Wilson, Raylan Wilson,
Samuel
CJ
Mpemba.
Yeah, and Mpemba, I heard good things about him. He is he has got a different motor. And CJ Allen, of course, is probably the best of them all. And so you're going to start to see those guys. They're going to light it up. That's why I think the defense is going to take not just one step. I think Georgia's defense is going to take a couple of leaps forward based on some of those young guys. And then you got the veterans doing the dirty work. Isn't that the best way to go about it? You got your young superstar athletes running around the field just with their hair on fire, and you got the vets in the interior and doing the dirty work. And when you think about somebody like Malachi Starks on the back end, and even Dan Jackson, lots of experience, but those guys are just so much talent. I just can't wait to see that. I can't wait to the spring game to see some of those guys. Georgia's got some injuries though, Smooch. I mean, I know Smile Munden's out. I even heard DeMello Jones had a little slight hamstring. He's limited somewhat. He's doing some drills. And there were some other players. I don't know. I can't remember who all the other players were who were out, but we got several of them who.
I've got them. I don't know where I put it. I had my little list I wrote out of them earlier. But, yeah, there's some injuries. Nothing too extreme. Broderick is coming back from his patella injury. He's right on schedule. The rocked up good, Broderick Robinson.
Roderick. I was thinking Broderick Jones for a minute when you said Broderick.
Yeah. Well, there's Broderick and Roderick. Isn't that, what are their names? We got
Roderick and Branson.
Branson is the one I'm talking about. Thank you. Branson Robinson.
They're both Robinsons, though.
They're both Robinsons, and they're both huge. So, but Branson's looking good. They say he's running full speed in a straight line. Hadn't started to cut yet. And then the thing with Smile, however you want to say his name, that goes all the way back to last spring. That's where he injured himself in the spring and never quite got over it. And then he broke that foot completely against Ole Miss and played the rest of the year on that broken foot. And so this is, if you remember the first year that Bowers won the Mackey Award, he sat out the whole spring for the same type of thinking. This is a guy, we're not worried at all about where he fits on our team. We want him healthy. And he sat out the spring. And then so did Nakobe when he won the linebacker award. Why am I drawing a blank? The Butkus Award. When he won the Butkus Award, he also sat out the spring that year. So you've got. Oh, here's my list. So you've got Branson Robinson, Bo Hewley, TID, Smile, Malachi, Ra, DeMello, Kristen, Chris Jones, Smile, Pierce, of course, that's the retirement we need to talk about, and then Damon Wilson. But Damon Wilson is now a full go, so he's back in. But of the only ones there, the one I'm really concerned about is Ra's foot seems to be this nagging thing that just doesn't get better. And so that's got me a little concerned. The rest of them look to be TID. Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins had a very basic surgery, and he's just going to miss the spring for it. So
yeah, he's another lineman who has a unique skill set, some get off, and ability to penetrate. He's a defensive end who could really make a difference on that team as well. He's got some experience. He can stay healthy. That's been the issue with him last year, not healthy for very long. Mm-hmm. He flashed when he did play. We look forward.
Yeah, think about this. TID and Michael Williams, they are both 6'5", 270. And think about the idea of having both of those in, especially if they're lined up with Michael at the jack linebacker position, which he's going to get more exposure with this year, behind TID lined up at the D end position. What absolute havoc you could see if we can get one of these big dudes to step up in the middle, like a Jordan Big Baby Hall or a Nazir Stackhouse or a Warren Brinson, one of these guys to stand up and be that crusher in the middle.
And the great thing that having those guys on the outside that you just mentioned, like TID and Michael Williams, is they are bigger. And so that helps in the run game as well. So you can keep them on the field, because it seemed like last year we got pushed around on the outside. Marvin Jones, he has an injury, and so he was never really in the weight room the way he needed to be to gain strength and gain weight. So he kind of got lost a lot of times. And Chambliss is kind of hit or miss sometimes on the edge. He can be pushed around. Good player, but he can be pushed around. Georgia had that a lot on the edge. That's why you saw those outside runs. One of the reasons is Georgia couldn't maintain and push the pocket or push the line of scrimmage, and the linebackers couldn't get to where they needed to go straight line. And so it kind of affected everything. If you can hold your own right there, even push the offensive lineman back and get some penetration, man, things will change very quickly. You got to feel like Georgia, they have. They noticed that was tough for the coaching staff to take that all year. The team's been able to run that way. And so they was like, no, okay, next year we got a full slate of practice in the spring and the summer. We're going to fix that, and we're going to put some bigger dudes out there who can get some stuff done.
And it did. It cost us one of our favorite players, right? Dumas Johnson, right? Where is he? Kirby went to him and said, this freshman is taking your job next year. There is nothing, you're not capable of holding him off in CJ Allen. He's not, there's guys that are really good at playing middle linebacker, and there's guys like Roquan Smith that have talent level like that, and CJ Allen does. And so that's how much we think of CJ Allen. I really think Javon Dumas Johnson would be your middle linebacker this year if it wasn't for that absolute monster. And now the dude's not even with the team. And Kirby's going to fix it. He is not. Troop and I, we were pointing, it was like game 2 or 3, wasn't it? When you and I were pointing out, how are they getting the edge on the Georgia Bulldogs? And of course, we didn't think Kirby noticed it at the time, but he apparently did.
He did, and he said, "Okay, yeah, we're going to take care of that."
Playtime is over. Yeah,
they're going to have to try something different against us. And Georgia's got the, you can't think every year you're going to be built the exact same way. Mm-hmm. And so last year, Georgia was built a little bit differently than they have been defensively. Still lots of talent, but just different. Yeah. And they still had a good defense last year, but teams were able to run the ball a little more. And some of those teams, even in the loss against Alabama, of course, Georgia couldn't get the ball back a couple times, and they just needed to stop a drive. And Alabama was able to run the ball. And a lot of times it was right there where we knew it wasn't anything we hadn't seen before. It was just Georgia just didn't have the personnel where they needed them, or they weren't ready to step in there and do what they needed to do. And I think they have them now. And so we'll see how that. We're very anxious and excited to see how those guys develop.
Yeah, at one point within the last 2 years, we've had guys on the defensive line that went 228, 235. That was a very common size for an end or an edge rusher. So we just named Michael Williams, Jordan Hall, Kristen Miller, Nazir Stackhouse, TID, Warren Brinson. The smallest of them is 270. Okay, now listen to these freshmen that came in. Ajanye, right? Freshman. He measured in at 6'4", 275. Agboko, Namdi, I can't say his last name, Namdi Mboko, 6'4", 340. There's a little baby weight there that's got to go. That's a big fella. And then Jordan Thomas, 6'5", 325. Those are the three freshmen coming in. You can see the shift in philosophy.
How heavy is Thomas?
Thomas is 6'5", 325.
Yeah, man, we haven't talked enough about him. I've heard good things about him. I don't know if he'll flash this year yet, but he's a guy that in a year or two you're going to know who he is.
Yeah.
But he is highly rated, and his name just kind of gets lost in the shuffle. How big is Mpemba? He'll be a second-year player.
Samuel Mpemba is 6'3", 245. That's where they think he's going to play. They'd love to see him up around 252, they were saying. So he's close.
And John just another kind of freak athlete, man. They got some guys in there. And we were talking in the pre-show, Smooch, you see these guys, you see their, I guess, the traits that they have and the numbers you just talked about, their size, and you see some of their accolades from the past, but you don't know. What you don't know, that's why you just want to accumulate as much talent as you can.
That's right.
High-end elite talent. You don't know. You don't know who's going to have it where they need it in terms of development, in terms of that want to, and making no excuses. And there's lots of players who have all that and who were dominant in high school when they get here and they look the part when they get on campus, and they just don't have it in them to continue to develop and work. And because it is tough. They will tell you, Georgia players will tell you about what it's like. You know, what it's like playing for Georgia. You're going to hate practice. You're going to hate it. But if you want to win,
I know. I
You
know
were
what you're doing. I'm looking for
it. He was picking up what I was putting down.
If you do not want to work, do not come to the University of Georgia.
That's what I thought.
That's the only one I could find.
But if you want to win, come to Georgia. And so it's fine. Put all those guys, I'm going to repeat what you said before, put all those guys in a box, let them fight their way out. A killer will emerge, and you'll have an all-SEC player who's fighting to go in the first round in a couple of years. And that's what makes champions. You know, when you got a coaching staff like Georgia's got, who can mold them, who can put them where they need to be, and have excellent coaches to help them along the way. That's why it's good to be a Dog fan right now. Alabama,
you're so right.
Tennessee, and Florida.
You mentioned the cupboard earlier. I want to show you something that in my pre-show stuff I came upon. This is the inside linebacker room, okay? I'm going to tell you something at the end of this that's going to blow your mind. Okay. So the sophomore, Troy Bowles, right? Dad's an NFL coach. The leader, Smile Mondon, Raylan Wilson, highly touted, Jalen Walker, highly touted, Terrell Foster, C.J. Allen, the next big thing, and then those three freshmen, Chris Cole, Chris Jones, and Justin Williams. Okay. You heard those names, right, of those guys I just named. The oldest player is Smile Mondon.
Yes.
He is the old man. He is the senior and the old man of that group now. That guy, we used to, when we talk about Justin Williams and we salivate now about what he can do, we used to do that about Smile, and now it's his time. And look, we love C.J. Allen, and he's a beast. But if Smile Mondon is not dealing with a foot injury, that's your best athlete on defense, and we'll stand behind that. So if both those guys are clicking this year, look out up the middle.
Man, that's crazy, Smooch. You named all those names off. What a plethora of riches, because those are all 5-star level talent. They were all either 5-star or borderline, just beneath, just in that top 50 top play. You know, you got to be. Most publications will have you top 30, 32. That's your 5-star level. If you're rated below that, then there's usually a 4-star. You can be 35. Georgia's got a lot of those players in that 40 and 50 range, and they got the ones in the top 32. But that is some next level talent. And the sad thing is that You're going to see some of those guys who just can't get on the field, even though they could be superstars.
Right.
They are loaded. But that's what we need. Georgia wants those next level guys who can take it a step above. The
ones that can
SEC.
Yeah, that can you can set yourself as so far better than the best that it's impossible to keep you off the field. That's their goal. They're looking for the creme de la creme, as they say. It's so cliche, but that's what they're looking for. Those 9 linebackers we just discussed, Troop, 5 of them were 1,000-yard rushers at the running back position as well.
Wow, that's some interesting trivia right there.
Now, that does, to your point, though, these are guys that are used to being on the football field. A lot of them played both ways. One of them played tight end. Some of them played wide receiver. So it is going to be who can take, of the Chris Cole, Chris Jones, and Justin Williams. Can all 3 of them sit all year and not get antsy? No. One of them's going to leave, maybe 2 of them. But the best one's going to stay.
Yeah, or they'll find a way to get them in there. Coach Kirby Smart has done a good job of finding situations to get these guys in the game, acclimated. And there's going to be some teams Georgia just runs through, and they're going to get some playing time. You have to do that, especially in today's age. You're going to have to get those players in there and keep them integrated into Georgia culture and feeling like they're a part of everything. And I think they will be. Georgia didn't recruit those guys just to bring them in and send them on their way. They'll have an opportunity to beat somebody out and get snaps. If not this year, especially for sure next year. But just so many great players. We were talking about Georgia's secondary and how loaded they have been the past.
My goodness.
Just this last 2 classes in that secondary is just about on par with the linebacker crew. I won't say they're a really 1A and 1B kind of a thing. I think the linebacker talent, because the guys are bigger and they have more upside. Georgia's kind of a team that you've seen the linebackers that come through Georgia the past few years. And
well, Georgia really plays a lot of their defense. They play 2 linebackers, as we would understand linebackers, and then the other 2, the money and the jack, those are basically hybrid positions. And so when you hear outside linebacker at Georgia, you got to realize Mykel Williams is going to be playing one of those a lot, right? He'll go back and forth because it's kind of a hybrid. So my point is, though, Kirby's defense uses 5 DBs in their base. So when you talk about the number they have, they've got a lot more, because if you've got a backup at each position, that's 10 defensive backs that you have to keep. And they do have it. So I'll go down the list of relevance that I saw for this year. And, of course, somebody's going to stand up and blow our minds. Before
you get going, I want to say the one reason we're saying this is kind of early to be talking, but we want you guys, our listeners, to know these names, because we're going to talk about them more and more. We want you to kind of know the names that we have expectations for, so we can reference them later. Mm-hmm. And so these are some of the names that you're going to be hearing more and more, especially as spring practice gets going and we get moving towards the season.
Right. And so names like Ja'Cory Thomas and Justin Rhett, Andre Evans, we just don't know about them yet. So the ones I have highlighted here on my sheet that could make a push for playing time: Dalen Everett, I think he's going to do fine. Janelle Aguero, Julian Humphrey, David Daniel Sissevan, Daniel Harris. There's always Dan Jackson, the most overlooked man in the secondary. Dan Jackson is back for, I think, his 9th year, so that's good. Malachi Starks, Chris Peel, if you listen to the players, you got to think something's happening with Chris Peel on the way up. KJ Bolden and DeMello Jones and Ellis Robinson, those are 3 true freshmen that are probably some of the top guys that have ever come into the Georgia program. One of them, if not 2 or more, is going to see significant playing time because of the talent. Bolden, DeMello, and then Ellis Robinson. I think Ellis Robinson is going to start the same way that cat did out at LSU, Derek Stingley. I think you're going to see Ellis Robinson start as a freshman like Stingley. We can mark that down and see if we're right, but yeah.
Only person you missed was Jake Pope, because he's a transfer in.
Yeah, I got him right here. I just didn't mention him. Yeah,
he's going to play. He's a guy that's going to play likely a good bit. But yeah, those are some of the names. I forgot to mention. I hate to change. Not really good. different direction here. I forgot to mention Tyke Smith. He looked good in the pro day drills too. He looked really good. I just left his name right out of there. Anyway, sorry, Tyke. Sorry, Tyke. Don't unfriend us.
We just did what every Georgia fan does, and that's overlook Tyke Smith.
But those names, man, we're so excited. On the offense, man, Carson Beck, I don't even want to talk about him because we already know what we think about him. And so many publications have come out and rankled our rival fan bases by saying, Carson Beck's the undisputed top quarterback coming back. Sorry, folks. Over and over and over. That's almost a consensus now. It probably is. Mm-hmm. But Puglisi, I heard some stuff from him. I watched Jake Rowe, or I read some of Jake Rowe's practice report from DAWGS HQ. Thanks, Jake, for those 20 minutes that you got to view practice. But he had some good stuff. You can find them on 3 DAWGS HQ. Check that out. Jake Rowe does a great job. Him and Rusty Manziel. Just wanted to give him some credit for that. But Puglisi, again, his arm talent and just the way he's the QB3 right now. We got to saw Gunnar Stockton throw in pro day because Beck didn't throw, but Puglisi is QB3. And man, what some arm talent. When he gets comfortable in the offense, he's going to do some things too. He's going to have an opportunity to play pretty soon.
The man that looked Dylan Raiola in the eye and said, we're both going to the same team. I can't wait to compete against him. And then it was Dylan Raiola that blinked and went to another team. Ran off to Nebraska or something like that. Yeah. And then there's Puglisi. That is enough to convince me that kid can lead. Yeah.
They don't even know if Raiola, who went to Nebraska and saying he's going to be the day one starter. I don't think it's looking like he's going to be the starter there. I mean, I don't know who the incumbent is or who the other quarterback is, but just saying, grass not always greener. Go to Nebraska if you want to. Yeah. Anyway, we're just fine with that. Man, there's so many young names. I think it always gets people excited when you got new players, and especially when you're not trying to cover up so many holes, and you're not thinking, well, we're going to have to find a way to scheme around this because we just don't have the talent in that area. And the thing is that that's normal for most teams. Right. There are a few teams that there are very few teams, I would say, like a Georgia, a Ohio State, who is just loaded with talent. They don't have the coaching Georgia has. They don't have the culture Georgia has.
That's the darn truth.
Loaded with talent every year. Alabama's loaded with talent. Again, they don't have the culture anymore that they had, and they don't have. I don't think they have the coaching. That's going to bear itself out. Yeah. And like I said on a few podcasts ago, Alabama's changing coach staff. It's not going to make it harder for Georgia. It's not going to be hard.
It can't possibly make it harder, no.
So regardless of what happens with that, and we already know how we feel about Ryan Day, we got a pretty good idea of what Josh Heupel's all about. And the thing about, Sarkisian, because we got to start talking about Texas. We said that last week or a week or so ago. We got to start talking about Texas. Yeah. They need to get some of the dog show back with the hook 'em and with the we got to learn all the lingo and what the Big 12's been all about to give those Texas fans something to talk about. Because I don't think there's no podcast like we have. So we want to bring them into the fold very, very soon.
We're gonna welcome them warmly, dog show fans. Y'all do your thing when they finally start commenting on our stuff. You go out there and do your thing.
We're gonna tag them on some stuff on TikTok, and we'll see what happens there. Yeah, what names we get called, what casuals and yokels and whatever rednecks, I don't know, all kind of,
do we have any wide receivers you guys want right now? Something like that.
The people who question our education,
I love that.
Really don't want to look at our walls and look what our degrees.
No, don't do that.
Anyway, that's all in good fun. We know how fandom works, folks. We aren't new to this. So
yes.
Anyway, but moving on, Smooch, we talked as we opened the show, talked a little bit about some of our skill set. We have traits too. We have a skill set unlike, and there's no other podcast like ours. I don't care if you're a fan or you hate on us. It doesn't matter. There's no other podcast like ours. Absolutely not, buddy. And we're very creative people and some talent there as well, and I think last year we did a little something because we were just missing the days when Tennessee and Florida were just at the front of our mind. And
yes.
And we had angst it was a lot longer for Tennessee, but Florida just a few years ago, that still sounds funny. A few years ago, Florida was somebody we really worried about playing.
I know.
But so you guys might have missed it. We got a lot of new followers since you first put this out.
Yeah, like 3 times as many.
And so I told Smooch, I said, man, because we had done a different podcast years ago and did some things. And I was like, man, I want you to come up with a song that reminds me of, it was something like a little R&B.
Lost Love, yeah.
Something like that, 90s, early 90s, R&B. And I said, and we have, like I said, he's done something like that before. I knew what I was looking for. So he came up with this to kind of bring it home to, we missing our lost loves. Our lost loves in Tennessee and Florida, right? You can set it up if you want to further.
No, that's nothing. No other words necessary, buddy.
Sweet victory. Hey girl, I just wanted you to know I've been missing you. We were so close.
So close.
I used to could reach for you when you were there. And now I fear I'll never have you back. And victory, we used to dance 11 or 12 times a season. But those days are gone, from the rocky top to the swamp. Where are you now? All the losing's weighing down on me. Where are you now? 'Cause I'm in love with what we used to be. I just can't quit you, girl. Come back to mediocrity. Come back to me. Where are you, girl? I can be your 7 and 5 hero. And don't worry, you'll still be bowl eligible, baby.
That line, those days are gone, from the rocky top to the swamp. So
Interesting enough that you point that out. I think I've told you this before, but we'll share it with our listeners. That was the first line I wrote. And so when you write, I rarely write in a linear fashion, right? And so usually I'll get an idea. So I knew I wanted a repeated chord progression in my head with a triangle or something like chiming in the background. And then I thought, oh, you know what? From the rocky top to the swamp sounds good. And then I was out jogging and I got, those days are gone, from the rocky top to the swamp. And I was like, oh, that's it. The rest of it's we're gonna have to figure out the rest of it.
I like it. Now, you said something that was a little inaccurate there, Smooch, and it'll bring it home. As you said that I can be your 7 and 5 hero. And if only it were that easy for Florida, if only they could find 7 and 5. Because as I go back, and we're going to look at some schedules here in just a moment.
I've got something for you, by the way, for Florida Gators. You ready?
Yeah.
You can tell he played for the Gators. He's smoking cigarettes and drinking gallons of tea.
Love it. So, 2020, they had Kyle Trask, and they were putting up huge numbers. That's the last time they beat Georgia.
Well, and COVID was defense optional year. Yeah.
It was. And Alabama, they played Alabama in the SEC championship, and it was a shootout, 52-46 Alabama. It was like a great game. You're like, damn, Florida. Dan Mullen is a pretty good offensive coach. Well, they still lost 4 games that year, and we kind of gave them a hard time. Georgia, lost a couple games, but they still lost 4 games that year, 8-4 in the year that they thought, we back. The Gators are back.
We're back, yeah.
That was actually the pinnacle of what they've been doing, because after that, 2021. 6 and 7. 2022, 6 and 7.
Oh my goodness.
2023 last year, 5 and 7.
Oh,
5 and 7.
That's worse.
That's not as good. And so they've been losing 7 games a year the past 3 years, and 4, like I said, 4 games in the year that they were their best.
Right. So
Florida, where are you? Where are you? Billy Napier is supposed to be a good dude, good coach, good recruiter. And he's in Florida is a very talent-rich state.
Oh my gosh, loaded with kids, like Louisiana is, just loaded.
So pull up Florida's schedule, if you will. We're going to share screen. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see it. If not, you can just listen to us comment on it. we're going to talk about this schedule real quick. And then if we got time, we'll talk about Tennessee's schedule as well. Or we may save it for another day.
Either way.
Either way, you'll be happy. So they do open up. Their schedule is tough, folks. And they got Graham Mertz, who they listed the top 20. One publication listed the top 20 quarterbacks, and Graham Mertz wasn't on there. And they were appalled. He's like, he had good numbers last year, good, but he is the dink and dunk quarterback. Carson Beck is not. That's
exactly right, Drew Brinson. Yep.
And so they open up the season August 31st, man, early, and they are going to be playing
Miami.
It's like Miami versus Miami, and I'm going to go through the schedule, and let's go through it and pick how many games they lose.
Yeah,
that first game of the season, you think they're going to beat Miami there?
No, and I'll tell you why. The NIL spending, which no one is spending with Miami right now. I mean, Miami's a top 5 probably NIL spender. And those teams usually do really well early on because you got talent everywhere. And so I like Miami in that game. I'm really interested in game 2 because that's a buddy of mine down there when we get to game 2.
Yeah, I don't want to go into any in-depth on, I guess talking about Miami, because I don't know enough about them or any of the games really, but I think that's at home in Gainesville, and I think they lose that too. Then they play another home game, so they have 3 straight home games, and Sanford is that second game. What's your thoughts on that one? Well,
don't forget, that's Chris Hatcher's team, right? And Chris Hatcher was quarterback of my high school team, and we were a few years apart. He's older than me, but let's not forget Florida got into a shootout with Sanford a few years ago and ended up winning. Both teams scored in the 50s. It was like 56-52, and they were celebrating in the locker room after.
Yes, we killed those guys.
Oh yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, I mean that's a win for the Gators, especially at home. And then they've got A&M coming to town after that. And what are you thinking on A&M?
They're going to lose to A&M. A&M, despite all their problems, are a lot more talent than Florida's got. They're gonna beat Florida. Florida is like I said last year, and some of the Florida fans didn't like it. The dogs agree with it.
My dogs agree.
Train wreck. Florida is still a train wreck, especially along those lines of scrimmage. And so that's their second loss of the season. They're going to want to start off the season 1-2, and then they're going to head on the road to Mississippi State. Now, Mississippi State Smooch, they don't have much going on there either, do they?
No, and I would give Florida the clear advantage in Florida in this game. That's actually a pick'em game to me. State's a hard place to play. Remember, Georgia?
It is.
Georgia, during their undefeated season, walked into Mississippi State, sleepwalking, and had to have Ladd McConkey open the second half with an end-around touchdown and got them back in the game. State can sneak up on you. It's a hard place to play. They get to use noisemakers that no one else gets to use for some reason, and so I still think you got to favor the Gators slightly.
In ugly, close game. They win.
Yeah.
The easiest part of their schedule is his first part. We've already got them in 2 losses and a close win against State. Then they're going to play UCF, Central Florida at home. I don't know much about Central Florida in terms of their football program right now. I think Florida probably wins another close, ugly game, even against like a Central Florida.
Central Florida is a cast-off program. So guys go to a school, you get released for academic or conduct reasons, you end up at Central Florida. That's kind of their thing. So Central Florida does have athletes that would surprise you. But, yeah, I agree. I think they put a scare into Florida early in the game, and Florida pulls away late.
Yeah, so Florida, man, they just broke even. They are broke up above 500, 3-2 on the season right there.
Right.
Then things get a lot tougher because they got to go to Tennessee, and that's going to be a loss. Yes. I don't think Tennessee got beat last year by them in Florida, and I just don't think Nico's a freshman, but I think Tennessee's got too much talent and a better coaching staff, so they're going to.
I think it's closer. I think the game's closer than we think it's going to be.
It might be. You might be right.
I think this one's a shootout where we thought the Mississippi State game is ugly. This one's going to be a shootout.
Well, Smooch, if it's a close game, then that's going to say a lot more about Tennessee than it is about Florida. because Tennessee still got aspirations too, but we might crush those later. Then they host Kentucky. That's going to be a loss. Then they go to Georgia. That's going to be a loss.
After a bye, so they got a bye week to prepare for Georgia, just so you know.
Yeah. They come all up with the excuses. I don't think there's going to be any excuses for that one. Then they play at Texas. They go Tennessee, Kentucky, Georgia, Texas, all losses. Then they go to Then they host LSU, loss. Then they host Ole Miss, loss.
Big loss. That's a blowout.
Then they go to Florida State, loss. And that's their season, their last season. So that's what, 3-7?
Yeah, I really do see a 5 to 6 game losing streak to end the season. And what's gonna be hard for this team is if they manage to win some of those earlier games that we picked against them and get, say, 3-1, 4-0 to start the season, something crazy like that. It's not going to matter. Once you hit Kentucky and maybe even Tennessee, but once you hit Kentucky, you don't have a win on the calendar. It's over. The Florida State game, rivalry games, because of the emotion, the Florida State game may be the most winnable game of your last 6. And that is a terrible place to be. So Ole Miss, LSU, Texas, they are going to smoke Florida.
Mm-hmm. And LSU's got Nussmeier, quarterbacking this year. We saw him a couple years ago in the SEC championship, and he's a very talented QB.
He's got a gun.
Only didn't play because, man, they had a Heisman Trophy winner playing in front of him.
Yep.
Ole Miss is going to score a lot of points. And Florida State, if they have the season that they expect to have, they should beat Florida. They should beat them easily. Mm-hmm. But who knows, man? I don't know what to anticipate with some of those teams like Miami and Florida State. I don't give them much credence. We saw what happened with Florida State and the culture. They can have the greatest season they want to have it. They were played in the ACC to begin with. And then just what happened at the end of the year. And it's been talked about and beaten. Your players don't opt just to not play with their brothers in a situation like that, an undefeated team, if you have the right culture. And Georgia proved that point. The score was winning by that many points, and 63-3 was just a further stamp on the season. But you don't – I know we're getting off here on Florida State, but you don't have players do what they did if your culture's right. And Georgia's proved that emphatically. So,
and you don't do it and bounce back the next year. You don't have a major – this is a catastrophic failure of culture. You don't recover from that in one off season. That's the reason I think Florida State is the most winnable game, not because I think Florida's going to be playing well. I just think Florida State could be a dumpster fire by then. So
at the best, we have them going like 3-7, 4-6. I think 3-7. It could be worse than that. If they lose a couple of those games, like you said, against UCF or Samford, I mean, it could happen, folks. It could happen. Mm-hmm. If you look at, like I said, the last 3 seasons, they have lost 7 games each year. And there's a lot of problems going on. They don't have the talent they need in the right places.
I would say 8-5 is 5-8 is optimistic. I'm sorry, my math is off. 4-8 is 4-8 is optimistic.
How many games are on that schedule, Smooch?
Should be 12, right? Let's
12.
see.
Did I say 3-7 in this?
I think you did. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4.
He's counting it up.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yep.
Did you count the SEC championship?
No, I didn't count the SEC championship game. I don't. They may be sitting next to us for that one, Troop. Watching it at our house.
I just predicted 3-9. Is that what I did?
You predicted 3-9. I predicted 4-8. We'll see.
Well, there you are, Florida. We wish you were a little bit better. So the trash talk, because you got some fans who can go at it, man. You guys have got a winning background. You got a lot of fans who are clever and witty, but they have disappeared because there's nothing to talk about. They don't want to be piled on, because when you don't have any ammunition in terms of what your results are, we saw that. We've seen it in the past, and they just kind of
Florida man charged with assault with deadly weapon after throwing alligator through Wendy's drive-through window.
You got great fans.
Yeah. Let's pull up Tennessee, Smooch. Just check out Tennessee.
Let's do it.
Even though they felt like they were back, man, did we call last season
Could not have been more accurate. That's probably the most spot on the dog show's ever been, Drew.
They thought there would be an ascension. that Heupel was that dude. He's a good coach. I'm not saying he's not, but he's not that dude that he's going to make that much of a difference when you lose talent. It's not always you're not entitled to replace him with the same type of production or the same abilities to win. And Hooker was a quarterback who did some good things and had some good wide receivers. And, they definitely beat Alabama and with a field goal at the end. And that's saying something. Just haven't matched up with Georgia whatsoever. They did lose. And like I said, they thought they were going to compete for the SEC championship last year. 4 losses, 8-4.
8-4.
And the best thing they did, the thing that made me the proudest, was that they beat Iowa in the bowl game like 35-0, just to kind of let the Big Ten. And just another little cup check for Big Ten.
Cup check for the Big Ten. I love it.
Like that.
I love that.
For you baseball fans, you know what that. If you're not a baseball fan, you have no idea what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Or a baseball player for that matter.
There you go.
Fans wouldn't even know. So let's look at the 8-4 Volunteers. And I really haven't gone too much through their schedule, so it'll be the first time.
So there's this front loaded with weak stuff. So at this point last year, we were talking about, Heisman Trophy and national championship chances. And they're talking about it again this year. That they think Nico is, as a redshirt sophomore, going to be a Heisman Trophy. Redshirt freshman is going to be a Heisman Trophy candidate. Anyway, but the reason I'm telling you that, Troop, is because it's going to get crazy early on because they play Chattanooga and NC State their first 2 games and Kent State in game 3. Now, if they run all over these teams, we are going to expect by the first month of the season Tennessee to be ranked ahead of Alabama and Georgia. Just expect to see it because they're going to be putting up crazy numbers. Though that Kent State game, Kent State can sneak up on you if you're taking them too lightly.
They can. They're not bad at all.
No.
But then the season gets real when they got to go to Norman, Oklahoma. I don't know how good Oklahoma really is, but going on the road with a freshman quarterback is a recipe for a loss. And so that's a game I think they probably will not be favored to win.
I agree. I think I know they lose one of the next 3. So Oklahoma, Arkansas, Florida, they're going to lose one of those games. And I would say I agree with you. I think it's Oklahoma.
And so I think they'll lose to Oklahoma and be 3-1. Then they'll go to Arkansas or play in Fayetteville and they'll win that game 4-1. They'll play Florida next and be 5-1. Then hosting Alabama at a 5-1 team and a freshman quarterback.
That game is going to be crazy because it's going to be in Neyland. And so that should be a lot of fun, but I can tell you, I know Heupel's defensive mind. Here's what's going to happen. Mark it down right now. Jalen Milroe is going to rush for 200 yards in that game, and they're not going to have an answer for him because they can't play defense on something like that. They're not the way that their offense wears out their defense. Milroe's going to throw for like 120 yards and rush for 230. Yep. And they're going to lose. Tennessee will lose 31-17.
Okay, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
So that'll make them 5-2 as they move on to play Kentucky. And that game's they're hosting that game too in Neyland. So I think they're going to beat. I think they'll beat Kentucky. I think it'll be closer than they want it to be to make them 6-2 before they play another home game against Mississippi State. They'll win that 7-2, and then they got to go to Georgia. 7-2 team playing Georgia, who's battle tested all the way through, and Georgia's going to wipe the floor with them because that's what Georgia does to Tennessee, and that's really why we're talking about it because Tennessee hasn't measured up to Georgia. So 7-3 right there.
And another thing I want to mention about Tennessee, I don't think that kid's still going to be playing quarterback by week 9. I don't.
I've watched. Don't know who they got in the wings.
I'm not talking about losing his starting position. I don't think he can survive with his style of. I don't think Nico, as skinny as he is and the way he runs, I don't think he's going to survive. They have no offensive line. Yeah, and so I'll be very surprised if he's still the starter when they play Georgia.
That's a good call because he's super talented, and he's gonna have to make a lot of plays and put himself at risk. And he is not built to sustain too much of that physicality that he's going to see in SEC and against the teams that they should beat. But I see him winning the last 2 games against UTEP and Vanderbilt and having a 9-3 season. And health will have a lot to do with it. I think that's their ceiling, 9-3. It could be worse, but that's that'd be another successful season. Lost 4 last year. It's still not compete. I don't think they'll be a playoff team. If they win 10 games, it will be. If they beat Alabama, if they find that's the crux of the season right there.
That may decide who makes it into the playoff. It might be it might
Alabama.
I said this today that I hope Alabama made the playoff, and you would think I slapped the guy in the face. I said, listen, finishing outside the top 12 is a real possibility for Bama now.
They don't say that. That's craziness.
Yeah, I know. And so, you really could see some late season incredible importance on that Alabama-Tennessee game that would make it so fun from our chair.
Yeah, we're going to pick a couple teams each week to go through their schedules. And if you think, and we get called homers and casuals, if you think we're just homers and can't analyze and really make some objective calls, you're wrong. You're wrong, because we've done it. We've shown you that we will. We even told you that Georgia was going to lose, and we didn't know when they were going to lose, but we let you know. Georgia at some point is going to lose. We're going to have to deal with that, and that's what happened. Yeah. And so we're not just homers with rose. We're going to, of course, slant things towards Georgia because that's our team. But I think Tennessee's going to be 9-3 next year. I think Florida's going to be 3-9. And when we get to Alabama and Ole Miss and whoever else, we're going to try to call it. We're going to call balls and strikes the best we can. And we want to be right. We don't want just to rile you up all the time. We want to be right, first of all.
Yeah. Alabama troop this year, we'll cover it on our next show, I'm sure. But Alabama has the same thing you were warning Tennessee about last year. They have too many questions that have to be answered. You can't assume they all work out. They all answer with the perfect answer. And that's where Alabama is this year. So many questions. I really think it's prime for Ole Miss to step up and take that spot over there.
Yeah, we won't get into it too much. I will say the biggest if, and if you have listened to our podcast, I know you have, or our TikTok or anything, the biggest if we have with Alabama, and we'll cover this next week, is will the players follow that coaching staff? And is the coaching staff good enough to lead? And so those things, we don't know. We don't know. I would say to Tennessee, I would say the money would say that they won't, not to the extent that Alabama fans are, their expectations are. And anything below that to them is a failure. Falling below the top 12 is a failure. And I would agree it's a failure. But it's a good possibility it can happen with a new coaching staff. And like I said, I don't want
100%.
We could talk about this for the next 20 minutes because I just love it. We'll definitely save it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. I love how I feel like we're through the drought. There's that football drought every year. We're through it. Now we've got pro days. We got the draft coming up, and it's spring practices here. It just feels like, okay, the season's not here yet, but we're on the path to the season.
Yes. February is a tough month. Not a whole lot going on.
Rough.
In January, you got some ball games early, but then after that, you're like, oh man, then you get a little bit where you're just missing your guys, missing football. April 13th is G Day, and Dog Show got a chance we might be there again. We were there last year.
Maybe there.
Chance Dog Show might show up. Kirby Smart invite us to the sidelines again.
That'd be nice. That was good stuff.
Yep. You can find us, folks, on the Dog Show Pod, DAWG, across all our platforms. Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, and wherever you're listening to this podcast, please give us a 5-star review and tell us what you think. We want to know. Smooch has mentioned before that even though you guys are the best fans in college football, you don't write reviews a whole lot, and just take a minute and let us know.
Do some of that.
We know you guys can write well. It doesn't matter. Just give us a little feedback, and that's where we stand right now.
Yeah, and just remember the Dog Show with Troop and Smooch. That's the easiest way to find us on all of the social media, all of the podcast platforms, because we're working something out right now. There is a Cleveland Browns show titled very similar to ours. So, but if you put the Dog Show with Troop and Smooch, it pops right up. But they are about to rebrand. So we should be good there. But if you're confused about that, or if you've ended up talking about Deshaun Watson when you wanted to be talking about Carson Beck, that's the reason. So anyway, the Dog Show with Troop and Smooch, and in our rebranding, you're going to see that title anyway. So that's us.
Join the fight, especially on Twitter and TikTok. We are posting stuff there daily, and we're taking slings and arrows, and we love it. So come on in, and I think some fans, I'll see some fans on there, and they're not really big on Twitter, but you can see they may have 10, 15, 100 followers, but we respond. We'll talk back and forth to you.
Yeah.
And we'll also call you out for some crazy ideas. So, but
we love the conversation. We don't mind being challenged. Matter of fact, we like it, and we don't care if you're a 15-year-old that's just figuring football out, or if you're some grumpy old conspiracy theorist living in a bunker out back. We love talking football, so we're here for everyone.
Thanks again for tuning in, folks. For Smooch Moncrief, this is Troop Brinson saying so long. See you next week.
This podcast sucks.
This is the Dog Show with Troop and Smooch.
It's the Dog Show. It's the Dog Show. It's the Dog Show. It's the Dog Show.